Hello, you're watching A News. I'm Leila Masimwa. Here are the top stories. Protests resume in Georgia as demonstrations continue for the fifth night. France is set to experience political turbulence as the government is on the verge of collapse. COP16 opens in Riyadh. The focus is on tackling the urgent challenge of land degradation, desertification and drought. Protests continue in Tbilisi for a fifth night over the government's decision to delay EU accession talks until 2028. The opposition accuses the ruling Georgian Dream Party of adopting anti-Western pro-Russian policies.
Thousands of people gathered outside Parliament today for the fifth night, triggered by the ruling party's decision to suspend the push to start talks on joining the European Union. They are against Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze's decision to suspend EU accession talks until 2028. President Salome Zurabishvili, who supports joining the EU, has asked the Constitutional Court to annul the election results and declare the new legislature and government illegitimate. Voices of protesters spread through not only the streets of Tbilisi, but also at least 8 cities and towns. Some gathered outside Georgia's state television first channel to broadcast their message live. Police used tear gas and water cannons to dispel the crowds. The ruling Georgian Dream Party accused the EU of blackmail following the European Union's call for a rerun of last month's parliamentary elections, citing significant irregularities. Prime Minister says he rejects calls for new elections. The EU and the United States are alarmed by what they see as Georgia's shift away from a pro-Western path. Georgian Dream says it's acting to defend the country's sovereignty against outside interference.
France's minority government is on the verge of collapse. It is after Prime Minister Michel Barnier pushed through the 2025 budget without a parliamentary vote, and a no-confidence vote looks likely on Wednesday.
A no-confidence motion has been triggered by both the far-right National Rally and the left-wing New Popular Front. It's after Prime Minister Michel Barnier bypassed Parliament to pass the 2025 budget. The budget aims to reduce France's deficit by slashing €40 billion in spending and €20 billion in tax increases. However, he tried to push it through without the support of the other parties. National Rally lawmakers and the left combined have enough votes to topple Barnier, and leader Marine Le Pen has confirmed her party would vote for the left-wing coalition's no-confidence bill on top of their own bill. If the no-confidence vote does indeed go through on Wednesday, Barnier would have to tender his resignation. But President Emmanuel Macron may ask him and his government to stay on in a caretaker role while he seeks a new prime minister. This would mark only the second time a French government has been ousted since 1958 and the first since 1962. The country's political future remains uncertain, with potential outcomes including the formation of a new government or the establishment of a technocratic interim leadership.
Taxi drivers in the French city of Lyon protested on Monday against a proposed agreement negotiated with the health service on the transport of sedentary patients, causing serious traffic disruption in the city. The protest is happening as the government is looking at several changes to healthcare reimbursement rules to help reduce the public deficit. Taxi drivers who are protesting changes to the health transportation tariff have said their actions may continue throughout the week. The drivers' demands have not yet been addressed by Prime Minister Michel Barnier's government. Rebels in Syria claim to have seized Aleppo International Airport, dealing a blow to the government forces. The war in Syria intensified during the last week as anti-government fighters pushed to solidify their positions in various parts of the country. Earlier, the government forces lost control over Tel Rifat, adjacent to Aleppo. Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, spokesman, says that the UN chief calls for an immediate end to hostilities in northwestern Syria and return to UN-brokered political process. Tensions are rising in the Middle East as Israel and Hezbollah accuse each other of violating a ceasefire agreement in southern Lebanon.
The Israeli army carried out strikes on Hezbollah targets, including military vehicles and personnel, over the past 2 days. Lebanon's national news agency reported the death of a Lebanese security officer in the Israeli attacks on Monday. Meanwhile, Hezbollah confirms it launched mortars at an Israeli military base near the border, a move the group called a warning after Israel's continued violations of the ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned Hezbollah's actions, calling them a serious violation, pledging a forceful response. He reiterated Israel's commitment to enforcing the ceasefire and dealing with any breaches decisively. The ceasefire, which has been in effect since the 27th of November, was meant to end more than a year of fighting. However, Lebanon accuses Israel of more than 50 violations, raising doubts about the sustainability of the ceasefire agreement. Israel defends its actions, asserting they target Hezbollah militants who are undermining the ceasefire.
An overnight Russian drone attack has left Ukraine's western city of Ternopil without electricity, a regional military official said. The full-scale of the attack on the city, a major city in the Ukraine's west, was not immediately clear. Emergency services continue working to restore power supply. Air raid alert over the Ternopil region lasted for about 2.5 hours. NATO foreign ministers are in Brussels for 2 days of discussions on Ukraine's membership and the Middle East crisis. According to diplomats, however, NATO is highly unlikely to heed Ukraine's call for a membership invitation. They say it because there's no sign of required consensus among the alliance's 32 members. This will dash Kyiv's hopes of a political boost ahead of the US President-elect Donald Trump's return to the White House. US President Joe Biden arrives in Angola for the long-awaited Africa trip, fulfilling a promise to visit sub-Saharan Africa during his presidency. Biden aims to strengthen the Lobito Corridor project, connecting the resource-rich Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia to Angolan port of Lobito on the Atlantic. The corridor aims to boost trade and shift cobalt and copper exports from China to the US. During his 2-day visit to Angola, Biden will meet with President João Lourenço and Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema. As COP16 opens in Riyadh, the focus on the tackling the urgent challenge of land degradation, a critical issue especially for the Middle East. With global leaders gathering, the conference aims to forge stronger commitments and actions to restore land and enhance drought resilience for future generations.
With the theme Our Land, Our Future, COP16 is the largest ever UNCCD meeting and the first to be hosted in the Middle East and the North Africa region. This may set the stage for the country to play a huge role in negotiations at the event, since the area knows firsthand the impact of desertification.
COP16 is poised to be a game changer, marking a renewed global commitment to accelerate investment and action to restore land and boost drought resilience for the benefit of people and planet.
In the opening remarks of the plenary meeting at COP16, Saudi Arabia's newly appointed COP16 president committed to collaborating with the global community.
Dear participants, international reports show the degradation of more than 100 million hectares of agricultural land, forest and grasslands by every year. And this has an impact on more than 3 billion persons around the world. And this will lead to a loss of $6 trillion per year, in addition to losses in biodiversity and climate change.
Heads of delegations discussed ambitious goals for land restoration and environmental sustainability at the ministerial meeting.
We build on the policy options presented by the Intergovernmental Working Group on Drought. We need to focus on strengthening disaster preparedness, enhancing regional cooperation, and ensuring that drought resilience is integrated into broader climate and development agendas.
COP16 is seen as a critical moment for governments and non-state actors to slow and reverse land degradation. It could be a pivotal opportunity to unite nations in a common effort.
There is a growing urgency to turn science and data into policies and policies into action, as droughts are projected to touch 3 in 4 people globally by 2050 due to the combination of effects by climate change and land degradation.
As COP16 progresses, the world may look to Riyadh for bold commitments and concrete action for sustainable land management practices. As the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia leads the way, the outcomes of this historic conference could set the stage for meaningful change in combating desertification, not just in the Middle East, but globally.
Vanuatu finds itself on the front lines of a climate crisis that it did not create, says Rolfer Negavano, the envoy for climate change and the environment for the small island nation. The statement was made at the United Nations highest court.
Vanuatu, a small island nation, called to define country's legal responsibilities regarding climate change, highlighting the existential threats it faces. Rolf Rijimvanu, the envoy for climate change and the environment of the small island nation, said that during hearing at the UN court.
Today, we find ourselves on the front lines of a crisis we did not create. A crisis that threatens our very existence and that of so many other peoples who have come in unprecedented numbers to be heard by this court.
Rijimvanu stressed the case's importance, pointing to the damage already inflicted on Vanuatu and the broader threat to humanity.
At issue in this case is the legality under the entire corpus of international law of a certain conduct displayed by specific states over time, which has interfered with the climate system to a point that has already resulted in injury to Vanuatu and that threatens the survival of my people and of humanity as a whole. The current emission reduction commitments of states, even if fully respected, will see a catastrophic increase in temperature.
The problems faced by small island nations were also discussed at the largest UN climate conference, COP29, in Baku in November, highlighting the urgent need for global action. The court is hearing testimony from small island states as well as major emitters like the US and China and OPEC, with proceedings continuing until December 13 and a ruling expected in 2025.
Moments ago, we received an update from Narchachak, who has the latest information from the second day of COP16 of the UN Convention to combat desertification.
In the second day of COP16 at Riyadh, the morale is very high as we already hear some promising numbers from the authorities. Besides the plenary meeting, a lot of side events and official bilateral meetings are taking place behind the closed doors. Of course, the land restoration, desertification and drought resilience are the center of this land conference at Saudi Arabia. Yesterday was quite fruitful in terms of negotiations, as the Minister of Environment, Water and Agriculture of Saudi Arabia, also President of COP16, Abdulrahman Al-Fadiyeh, announced new initiative by the kingdom, and it is a Global Drought Resilience Partnership Initiative. Abdulrahman Al-Fadiyeh announced $150 million support by the Saudi Arabia to this initiative, and he called upon the governments to support and pledge to the project. Also, it is estimated that this initiative will cover up to 80 countries which suffers from land degradation. But also we can hear some announcements and pledges from the other developed countries. For example, EU is very eager. The Commissioner of EU on Environment and Water Resilience, Jessica Roswell, which is newly appointed to this post, she announced about the contribution of the EU to drought resilience and land degradation talks. She said that the organization is committed to support all the initiatives regarding these negotiations here at Riyadh. Also today, the second day of COP16, One Water Summit is going to take place, and it is very promising summit indeed, and we expect a lot of pledges, contributions and announcements from this summit. But also COP16 Riyadh is going to announce international drought resilience platform, which will be powered by AI data, and this is going to be the first of its kind. The platform going to provide a single portal from which managers and experts can analyze and visualize all the data regarding drought resilience, and they may come with the important solutions. The conference is still going on, and the theme is Our Land, Our Future, so we are really hopeful, and these are all the information from now.
The Federal Reserve is considering another interest rate cut in December. That's according to Christopher Waller, a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. The Fed's next move follows recent rate cuts. In November, it reduced the benchmark rate by 25 basis points to 4.5 to 4.75%, the second cut since the pandemic. In September, it cut by 50 basis points to support the economy as inflation cooled. With inflation easing, market watchers are closely watching the December meeting for signs of a more accommodative stance in 2024. The Kremlin says any U.S. attempt to compel countries to use a U.S. dollar would backfire after U.S. President-elect Donald Trump threatened to impose tariffs on BRICS countries if in fact they create their own currency.
Kremlin spokesperson commenting on U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's threat to impose tariffs on BRICS countries if they create their own currency said on Monday that any U.S. attempt to compel countries to use the dollar would backfire. Moscow said the dollar was losing its appeal as a reserve currency for many countries, and the trend was gathering pace. Trump demanded Saturday that the Nine Nations bloc commit to not creating a new currency or supporting another currency that would replace the dollar, saying they would otherwise face 100% tariffs. Leading politicians in Brazil and Russia have suggested creating a BRICS currency to reduce the US dollar's dominance in global trade. But internal disagreement in the alliance of Russia, China, Brazil, India, South Africa, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia and the United Arab Emirates has slowed any progress.
Excavations at an amphitheater in an ancient city in the northwest of Turkey have discovered 3 Roman-era artifacts which are in fact intact: a head statue of Medusa, a portrait-based bust believed to the patron of the theatre and a Byzantine-era water storage reservoir have all been uncovered.
Excavation work have been ongoing during the last 5 years at the ancient city of Prusias ad Hibium in northwest Turkey. History can be traced back to the 3rd century BC, despite the area being significantly affected by previous earthquakes and restorations. As well as a head statue of Medusa and a bust believed to be a theatre patron and a Byzantine-era water reservoir, archaeologists have also uncovered a Roman-era clay theatre ticket. The local mayor says the artefacts have been found in pristine condition.
Approximately 80% of the theater area has been uncovered. We have discovered highly significant historical artifacts, all found intact, which hold immense importance both locally and nationally. The entire area is a candidate to become an archaeological site. Beneath this settlement lies a Roman city, as confirmed by experts. The artifacts we have encountered suggest findings that could even reshape historical narratives.
The mayor says there are plans in the future to restore the ancient theatre into a 10,000-seated cultural and arts centre.
Thank you. That's all we have for now, and keep watching our news.